I've just finished reading your book, Sustainable Solopreneur. But I've followed your work for years, and I feel like it speaks to so much of what I'm kind of learning in my own business and kind of like wrestling with. And so I wanted to bring you on to talk more about your work, how you're thinking about solopreneurship, and share some advice for other people trying to navigate this crazy world of business. So
Sounds
maybe,
perfect.
yeah, so maybe you could just start like to introduce yourself and where you kind of focus your work these days.
Yeah. So I'm Jenni Gritters. I live in Central Oregon. I have a million and one titles, and I use a different description every time I do this. But I am a business coach and strategist for solopreneurs. I primarily work with creatives, multi-passionate people, people who don't fit into the standard box, folks who have capacity limitations. And my main focus is helping you build a business that's sustainable, that doesn't burn you out. So one that, instead of just working for a year or two, works for years and years and years and years and shifts as you grow. I was a journalist for a decade plus, so I'm a writer. Like I said, I'm a mom. I have two little kids, so my life is very, very full. I'm a big outdoors person. But what most people online know me for is the coaching, I think, and the
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah, love it. I think this like idea of a portfolio career and like all of these pieces coming together is like something I, see all the time, and everyone's like trying to figure out how to make it work. And I'm curious, again, like the tagline of the book is kind of like build a business that you love and that doesn't burn you out. I'm curious
Yeah.
how your argument, like how does this go against the traditional model of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just had a client have this experience where someone was kind of telling her, you need to fit into a niche. You need to be able to like explain what you do in one phrase. And most of the people I work with, that's just like not how we worked. In my brain, it's a puzzle. So in my brain, there's like all these different elements of your work and your selfhood, because I think our businesses are an expression of
Mhm.
ourselves. And at different points in your life, different pieces are going to make more sense. So I think this is really, I believe that flexibility, shifting, changing, evolving is really healthy and normal. And I think in the business world, most people kind of want you to build one thing that stays the same, right? Like one revenue stream, one simple message. And I just haven't seen that work for most people, myself included. So it's
Yeah.
very much a more, I think, like messy, human, complicated process to run a business
Mhm.
this way. And so a lot of people don't like that messiness, but to me, it's essential. I've watched a lot of people have really hard mental health struggles, right? Because they're like
Mhm.
stuck in a model that doesn't work for them anymore. So I
Right.
think it really goes against the like push, hustle, grind, suffer. It's more
Yeah.
like listen to your own well-being and change based on what you need,
Yeah.
with unapologetic, clarity on that thing. So
Yeah.
it feels very different than
Yeah.
the norm.
Yeah, I'd be curious if, people like struggle with this or like struggle with this idea of like, oh, you can enjoy it, what you're doing. It doesn't have to be this like tense struggle
For
all the
sure.
time.
For sure. I mean, I think most of us, at least generationally, are what we saw when we were kids. I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but like my dad suffered in his job.
Yeah.
That was what I saw modeled. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom and she was kind of miserable. She wanted to be working. And then my dad was a doctor and he hated his job. And so I think a lot of us have this programming built in, or maybe just like this assumption from when we
Mhm.
were really little that work equals suffering, or like to make more money, I have to work more. I have to like be more
Yeah.
exhausted. And I've had some things happen in my life, we could talk about it, but like that have kind of disproven that. And so I
Yeah.
watch people basically like not believe it's possible, but if they're willing to try, they start to collect evidence to the fact that like maybe it could work in a different way. I think we're
Mhm.
right in the middle of a little paradigm shift around this, Taylor. So it's like we've been working under this like must suffer paradigm, and now people are starting to ask questions about like, wait, does it have to be? Like,
Right.
does it have to
Right.
be like that? Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's more people are getting comfortable with kind of like experimenting and saying, okay, like trying to challenge it a bit more, but I think it also becomes like tactical in a way to say, okay, how do I actually like do this?
For sure.
So
It's both mindset and strategy, I think. At least the
yeah,
way I teach it is like first
yeah,
you have to be brave enough to experiment, and then we can put a little like strategy in place that is built on alternate assumptions. Does that make sense
right.
when I say it that way? It's like
Yeah.
whatever strategy you're building is based on a set of core beliefs. And so if we change the core beliefs, then the strategy changes. It's why I describe myself as a coach and a strategist because they kind of, to me, dance together, but we have to do the mindset part first, typically.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious, just because you've mentioned, okay, I'm a coach and a strat, like you do a lot of different things, and something that I think a lot about when I've followed your work is that you've kind of always known like when to jump from this thing to the next, or pivot. I know you write a lot about pivots and whatnot, and I'm just curious, like, what advice do you give to people in terms of like how to know when to take that next step, or like when to maybe like change course in their business one way or the other?
It's such a good question. It probably looks like I know when to jump more than it feels to me. I mean, I think part of it is there's always a messy, I call it a titration process. So there's this like moment of sort of like deciding you're going to focus on something new, but it doesn't usually mean that you just like stop doing the old thing. And in
Hmm.
fact, they kind of coexist for a while, and that's really messy. So for me, I was a journalist and then I ran a content agency for a long time. And I was coaching and running the content agency. And so I would slowly kind of like deprioritize that part of the business while growing the coaching business. But
Hmm.
this is the first year I've only made revenue from my coaching business. I've been
Oh wow.
coaching for 5 years, right? So
Yeah.
I will say that first of all, that like permission for it to kind of sometimes your revenue is coming from something entirely different while you're building the next
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
that's fine. I think that's important to say out loud. And then I think, I mean, I talk a lot about intuition right now. Like, I do think I do have some kind of like knowing, and we could talk more about it, but like, there's my
Hmm.
gut is pretty strong on like, this is a gamble worth taking, right? Because it's always a risk
Yeah.
to say,
Yeah.
I'm gonna check out the old one and do the new thing, or I'm gonna make it
Yeah.
messier. Even just from an audience perspective, right? I think a lot about like, am I confusing my audience when I'm changing my mind yet again? It's
Yeah.
always a risk. So
Yeah.
I think it's like self-referencing is part of it, and then being willing to really like let it be
Hmm.
messy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm curious, like if you were coaching people kind of trying to figure this out for themselves, what is your advice?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of people who come in kind of with like one business and they want a different business, right? And so
Hmm.
the way I talk about this is there's a bridge basically. So there's like over on this side is what you're doing now, and then over on the other side of the bridge is what you would like to be doing. And most of
Yeah.
us would really just like to like blow up the first version and be in the second version right away, but we actually have to walk over the bridge. And so that's basically what I do as a coach is I like walk with you over the bridge. We figure out where you want to go and then we're like walking. And
Yeah.
that's why it's 4 to 6 months of that. And so I
Yeah.
have a client right now. She's a good example. We're kind of like dripping the new stuff in, by which I mean
Hmm.
like in her existing programs or offers, could we start to bring in the value system of where she wants to go? Or could we start to like
Hmm.
talk about her work in a little bit of a different way?
Hmm.
Again, it feels very micro and I don't think it's super satisfying for our brains. But what happens is if you keep doing that over 4 months, you will look
Yeah.
up and realize, oh, my brand has shifted. Oh, I am ready to like introduce a new offer. Does
Hmm.
that make sense? It's like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty slow, but I think the drip thing is important of like you
Hmm.
have to start integrating the future thing now in some way, or else you feel like you're not actually committing to it
Yeah.
fully. Yeah, but you got to
Yeah.
walk
I think
across
yeah,
the bridge. There's no
definitely
other
yeah,
way.
mix. Yeah, you've got to just tell people what you're doing and have them to get on board.
Yeah, well, and I think like a lot of people who follow my work and love it, the feedback I will get is like, well, you were just really honest. And like,
Yeah.
it's exactly what you just said. Like, I'm like telling people, hey, I'm shifting into this thing. Hey, I'm interested
Hmm.
in this thing now. Hey, stuff is going to change a little bit. My audience is great about it. They all have the similar brains to mine. So
Yeah.
they're like, yes, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm down.
Um,
Yeah.
two directions I want to go with that, but I'll go with the first one, which is building on that with the offer design. I
Mhm.
love really going into like again how people are specifically building offers and whatnot because I feel like it's actually so much more. A, diverse, like the options out there, and
Yes.
B, like you right with like it being creative. Like it's not just like you have choice A or B, you have like hundreds. So I'm
Yes.
curious how you think about that offer design and how you again match that to like what's gonna make you most excited at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love offer design, same as you. I just think it's one of the most creative spaces we have. And I think part of what my audience has loved is that they kind of don't know what to expect from me because I do teach them like there's like about 25 different models of offers that you probably see represented out there. And then I think there's hundreds more, like you just said, of like,
Yeah.
we can make this up in whatever way we want. So the way
Yeah.
I think about it is first, I'm very self-aware of my own needs, especially my capacity. So, like I said, I have two little kids. I work about 25 hours a week. So I tend away from high touch offers. That's not 100% true, but like I have a lot of one-to-one coaching clients. So if I'm going to build something else, it's not going to be high touch because I literally
Yeah.
don't have space on my calendar for it. So I think about my capacity. I usually will sort of step back and think about like what are my goals with this offer? Like where does it fit into the offer ecosystem? So we could talk about that too, but like I think about offer ecosystems less pipeline, more like rings of a tree. We're trying to move
Uh-huh.
people into the middle. And so what is this offer doing? Like what's its point? That's
Yeah.
really important to me. And then truly like there's just a like surprise and delight element of like what would be fun. In my Create program that I run, it's an 8 week intensive all about remodeling your business. And we do like visualization and arts and crafts around offer design because
Mhm.
I want to know what texture it is, what color it is, like what, if it was an animal, what animal it would be. And that
Yeah.
tends to spark people's brains in a way that makes them come up with things that are like totally offbeat. And those work so much better. I mean, I'm sure you know this, but
Yeah.
it's like the weirder, the better, the more
Yeah.
resonant, the better. And it does need to work for your audience too. So we do need to also like beta test market research. That's the part at the
Mhm.
end I think
Yeah.
matters too. Like we got to solve a problem that matters, but
Yeah.
I just think it gets to be so much more fun maybe than a lot
Yeah.
of people. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it like can be fun. Like just giving people that
Mhm.
permission to like have fun with it, I feel like is so important.
Yes. I mean, I was the little kid who like sat in my room and just like made things and created things.
Yeah.
And most of my clients are that way too. So like business gets to feel like that,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's a lot of we're not shown that in like the very loud voices in the online business space. But to
Yeah.
me, the like I said, I like love to mix and match modalities and private podcasts and audios and then a live session and then I mean, do whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
And I also think thinking about like what's the transformation you're trying to build
Hmm.
informs that because then you're like, what would be most effective for my
Yeah.
people? But there's no right way. Thank
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting to me too because you've like I think many people in my world as well like stumbled into entrepreneurship, like didn't really intend to build a business and is kind of doing it backwards, and like
Yeah,
that then shapes how you like approach a lot, really.
for sure. I mean, I don't think I have any preconceived notions about supposed tos,
Yeah.
I was in a mastermind last year with a bunch of coaches, and I truthfully have like never. I came into coaching from journalism because people were asking for it, not because I was like in the online coaching conversation, right? And so I was sort of
Mhm.
startled by a lot of the like everybody trying to duplicate the same thing. And I think it's a
Mhm.
blessing actually.
Yeah.
Whenever people walk in and they say, I don't even know how to run a business, I'm like, amazing.
Yeah. My
That's
people.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, sky's the limit. Yeah, we can do
Yeah.
whatever you want because you don't have preconceived notions. I honestly think it's why my business has always worked so well because I'm just building what my audience wants and what's interesting for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an interesting point that comes up when a lot of like creator businesses and people I talk to for the newsletter specifically is this like
Mhm.
two-way relationship that has to happen with like listening to your audience actually and creating things for them. So I'm wondering how you, I know you're building like you say you're building relationship business, like how do you think about that like two-way interaction?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always talking to my people. So I have what I would call an evolutionary model of offers. So I have a lower ticket community program called Sustain, and then you can move into intensives, and then you can move into the council and more of my one-on-one offers. And
Hmm.
so most people start probably just by following my newsletter for like a year and a half, and then they come into Sustain, and then like it's like a
Hmm.
really long pipeline, Taylor. It's like 4 or 5 years. And I actually
Yeah.
prefer that because it feels so safe to know that right now there are like hundreds of people making their way through that process. But
Mhm.
I listen a lot, you know. Sustain is a really good place for me to hear what people are struggling with. I just did an intensive all about visibility. And the reason I did it is because I had 10 people ask for coaching on visibility in 1 week. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, I'm listening. I'm
Yeah.
listening. And like, I can't take you one on one. So I'm going to create a 2 week intensive. Right. So I do think there's people don't listen enough typically if
Mhm.
they're having trouble with offers or sales or marketing and it's not feeling resonant. That's always my advice is we got to go back and like people will tell you what they need. They will say
Yeah.
it out loud in a way that will feel almost like too simple, but they'll say
Yeah.
it, you know?
Yeah.
And then of
Yeah.
course it has to work for you too to offer it, but I think
Yeah.
yeah, you got to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated about you saying like people will be in your funnel for years, and I feel like
Yeah.
again it's like contrarian advice in some way where you're like, get the lead, close the lead,
I know.
get the sale or whatever. And again,
I
I
know.
think that's just like challenging what we have in our heads as like the way to do business.
I know. Well, I hate the word leads. I'm like, these are
Yeah.
humans. Like, what?
Yeah.
You, you know, like these are human beings. So I think this just comes from not coming up through the business world in the same way as other people.
Yeah.
Like, I am an introvert, so I really don't want to go like coerce people, have random conversations. Like, I also, when people come into my free 20-minute call about coaching, typically they just already know they want to be in there because they've been in my world for like 2 years, you know?
Yeah.
So it just feels better to me. I mean, I think the thing is, this isn't a quick approach. I always say this when I'm coaching people, like, I'm not here to teach you like how to go viral, how to have a shiny object sales strategy. I'm here to help you build something really long term. And that's not as
Mhm.
sexy. So
Yeah.
this takes a
Yeah.
lot longer. It's very repetitive action. You know, I like have posted on my newsletter every day or every week for 3 years. Like when people are like, how does it convert? I'm like, that's how, because
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
years.
It's never the flashy fun answer. It's just like
No.
keep doing it.
It feels safer to me because I think I don't trust that I'll always have energy for the
Yeah.
flashy.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. Yeah.
I want to dive more into the like topic of sustainability because I think I also go through seasons where again sometimes I'm like, yeah, this is so sustainable, it feels amazing, and then times where I'm like, what, this is the most stupid thing I've ever done. So I think a lot of
Why?
people would relate. You're like, that's an
Yeah.
oxymoron.
I know.
But yeah, we'd love to dive more into that. Like, how do you feel like what ingredients are required to make this like fully sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'll say is that like it's really normal, the ebb and flow, and there are seasons where I love my business, and there are seasons. This spring, I had one where I was just like, I can't make myself move. I don't want to do this. It was actually important. It was like I actually made like a huge leap after that time. So the first thing I'll say is that like if you are experiencing that, you are normal. And I just again, I think we're sort of taught it's supposed to be like this upward growth, and it's always cyclical to me. So there are these 5 core principles of sustainable solopreneurship in the book. The first is intention, and I love the root word for that is intention. It's like shooting an arrow is where it came from. So it's sort of
Mhm.
like knowing where you're going really helps. And I know that sounds silly, but a lot of us kind of ended up working for ourselves. And so it's very reactive. And so when I work with people, we're first just trying to nail down what do you care about? What are your values? Like, where are you trying to go? And that will shift, right? So I think to your point of like when you have seasons where you're like, what in the absolute hell did I do? I have to come back to all of this. What are my values? Why
Yeah.
did I care about this? What am I not getting right now? Probably that I need, or what permission slip could I put in here, right? So,
Yeah.
intention is number one. Flexibility is number two, which I think is really about that seasonality, not making yourself wrong for the ebbs and flows. Self awareness is the third one, which is really knowing your own patterns. And I don't know about you, but I have one where I'm like, oh God, I'm trapped. It's like an old thing that I have when I was a kid. And so when I start to feel that way in my business, I get almost like tantrumy, like I'm a toddler, right? And so it's like,
Mhm.
at least if I'm aware of that,
Yeah.
I understand it's not that my business is broken, it's that I'm having a reaction based on an old pattern. And there
Yeah.
probably is a need that I'm not meeting, right? Within there. But that's important. And then creativity and reciprocity are the other two. So creativity, the offer conversation is a great description of
Yeah.
that. But to me, like getting really outside the box helps you be more sustainable because you're having fun
Mhm.
and delight. And then reciprocity is about giving as much as you're receiving. So we could get way
Mhm.
into that one because I think that one's very countercultural, but it's
Yeah.
about energy management, it's about generosity, it's about
Yeah.
relationships. And so with those five, I think they just give you kind of like a couple anchors to hang on when you're like, I don't feel like this is going well. The goal is that you can look back at those principles and go, okay,
Mhm.
which one of these do I want to kind of like pull on and ask some
Recenter.
questions about. In the book, there's a lot of good questions in there that you
Yeah.
can journal on or write about. So it's
Yeah.
really built for that kind of moment of like, oh God, what do I do next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of circle back to the, I think, like self-awareness piece and
Mhm.
talk a little bit about mindset and like the work you have to do. Because I think you wrote, I had it written down that a business of one is a mirror for your own brain, which I was like, my first reaction was terrifying. But would
Yeah.
love to, yeah, would love to hear how you think about like how solopreneurs need to deal with some of the mindset stuff alongside some of the maybe
Yeah.
tactical business things.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been coaching since 2019. And when I first started coaching, I was just basically doing strategy. So I was like, let's fix your marketing, let's fix your revenue goals. And what I noticed was that, yes, we could have a strategy, but people would not implement it because they felt like they couldn't. They were like blocked, right? I feel like we've all had this experience. It's like you go do a training with somebody and they're like, here's the perfect strategy. And you're like, I don't know why, but I just can't do it. That's the
Yeah.
energetics, that's the mindset stuff. So I ended up like going back, doing a year-long training on all of this. And so it's why I basically refuse to do strategy with people if we're not also doing the repatterning
Mm.
work. So the way I would describe it is that like we all have programming based on how we grew up. And what will happen is if you're working for someone else, there's an external set of rules. When you start working for yourself, the rules are the ones that you implement, and you will implement them based on your view of the world. And so, for example, if you believe there's never going to be enough money, you will literally start to act, function, build a business that is going to create that level of scarcity. And
Yeah.
I know that sounds harsh, but it's like when people start to understand that and do some of that work to, I would say, like chip away at some of the original
Mhm.
beliefs, there's just
Yeah.
more space to create things that work a little better. So
Mm.
again, extremely frustrating. There is no end to that, but I think that there's
Yeah.
like a lot of freedom. At least like for me personally, I think every iteration of my business has required me to like chip away at some of those because
Yeah.
I've had to prove myself wrong, or I have the pattern of like carry everything on your shoulders alone. And so a
Mhm.
couple of years ago, I really had to like deal with that one, or else I was going to build a business where I was carrying everything on my
Yeah.
shoulders alone and I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a great segue to what I also wanted to talk about, which is this like concept of, yeah, like doing it all on your own. And, you have a section about outsourcing and when to have help. And I think it's just such an interesting conversation because I think so many people feel like, okay, I'm a solopreneur. They like wear that with honor and they're like, I can do it all myself and I don't need to spend the money or so it's like, how do you think about that and how do you help people walk through that
Yeah. I mean,
problem?
I have a belief that a lot of us who are drawn to solopreneurship have some level of wounding in our childhood about like needing to do it all by ourselves. And I watched my husband try to build a business for himself, and he was just like, this is insane. Why do you guys do this? This is awful. And I was like, I think that a lot of us who are drawn to entrepreneurship, we went through a lot as kids, and so we are very resilient. We can handle a lot of discomfort. And so what
Yeah.
I find in my coaching practice, and like he doesn't have that patterning, so he's like, this is hard. I don't get it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm used to that. But so what I find is that a lot of us are attracted to solopreneurship, A, because we love the freedom, which like absolutely yes, but
Yeah.
B, because it's probably a pattern of needing to do it by ourselves. So I call it toxic self-reliance. And
Yeah.
I think there's like a balance of, I love having a simple business, all about it.
Mhm.
But also, there are times when maybe I'm carrying a boulder up a hill by myself and I don't need to be. And
Yeah.
so that's a safety thing. That's a nervous system regulation thing for a lot of people. And so we have to start to learn how to let people closer to us or let ourselves be helped. And it's not
Mhm.
natural. it takes some like almost like exposure therapy to be like, okay, yes, I could survive having a little less control. So I like to have people start with like maybe just hiring a VA or something that's like
Yeah.
small, to learn how to have somebody closer to you. But uh, for everybody, usually around 12, 13K months, although like it depends what kind of business you have, you're gonna hit your own capacity limit.
Yeah.
You're going to. There's no way around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think well, and again, it's like goes back to I don't know what the word I'm trying to think is, but it's like you have the set plan, okay, I'm going to business for myself and, and it's going to change, but you're like, wait, I told everyone, I'm loving doing my business and running it on my own terms. And like you said, the freedom, but I think that freedom can look different to different people.
Yes. I mean, I think I'm in the middle of an inflection point where I have 22 one-to-one clients. I'm running all these intensives and I have a group
Yeah.
program with over 100 people. And I'm like, okay, I probably need to hire a second person. I have one contractor. And so I've been sitting with my numbers and realizing like, I have like a 90% profit margin. That's crazy for a business of my size. It would be very fine for me to have a 70% profit margin, right? But so
Yeah.
there is something about the like, what have I told other people I love? And am I allowed to change my mind?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
but also, sometimes you'll get feedback. It's not the nicest, but I think like you're the one who has to run your business. So you're allowed
Yeah.
to change your mind. And the thing you wanted 2 years ago is probably not the thing you want now.
Yeah.
Depending
Always.
on your life. Yeah, depending on your life. Yeah. I mean, like I have
Yeah.
little kids, right? Like all these things shift so often. I think it got forced a little bit, forced
Yeah.
a little bit,
Yeah.
but it happens to everybody. We always change our minds.
Yeah. In terms of the like numbers and looking at margin and whatnot, like I know you talk a lot about like financial success is just like one indicator of overall success for you and your business. Like how do you think about that?
Great question. So I can't remember if I wrote about this in the book or not, but I used to have a spreadsheet that would show me like how much money I'd made each
Yeah.
month. And I ended up having to add 6 more lines that were like, but how does my body feel? Did I spend time outside? Did I spend time with
Yeah.
people? Because it was it was driving me too heavily towards that one success metric. And I will tell
Hmm.
you, like, there's times I've loved my business the most when it's actually been lower revenue, right? So it just doesn't feel as linear as I think we make it, although it's a really good, I won't say good, easy thing to say to other people to prove that you're successful, right? So you're like, I'm
Yeah.
making this much. And then they're like, oh, she's doing a good job. I feel like
Yeah.
what people don't tell you is that like sometimes you can be making a lot and be miserable, or you can be making
Yeah.
very little and happy. So it just doesn't feel as linear to me. So when I work with people, one of the things we do at the very beginning is we create a success matrix. So it's like, what does success look like to you?
Hmm.
Part of that is money for sure. But then there's like,
Yeah.
to me, it's about impact. It's about relationships. It's about respect. It's about like having time to go play outside, about my
Hmm.
body feeling good, like all of these
Yeah.
different. So yeah, it's just nuance, I think it's really nuanced.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it goes back to the like you don't have to suffer like argument.
No,
Um,
and there's building years. I feel like I should say this too. Like
yeah.
the ebb and flow, like sometimes when you're building, you have less revenue in your business, right? And that's
Yeah.
like normal because you're putting that nourishment and that resource towards something else. So it's
Yeah.
just not as cut and dry. I mean, I always say finances are like a little bit of math and a little bit of magic. Like it's like energetic and numbers, and it's both. And if we're not acknowledging that, money
Yeah.
can be really devoid human beingness. And so I'm
Yeah.
constantly trying to, I think, bring that back in of like, you're still a human because capitalism can be very disembodied. You're still a
Yeah.
human.
Yeah.
Like, let's add that into the conversation, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think kind of rounding this out, I one of my like kind of main messages I write about a lot is that like having a business is like ultimately a means of empowerment to,
Mm,
that again, like you said, you say to build something you love, like it is something that can be yours and it's a positive thing. And I don't want to butcher your quote, but you wrote something about like it's like a sign of hope that you are taking something, putting into the world. And yeah, I would wonder what your message is to people that's like the power of building a business and how it can be like a vessel for them.
yeah, totally. When people ask me, about being a business coach, the honest truth is that it's never been about business for me. It's that business is, like you said, a vessel for growth. It's a vessel for stepping into your own power, to being seen, to prosperity, to confidence, to all these things that a lot of us are seeking. And I don't think it's the like right path for everybody to get to that. Like, it's not
Mhm.
the only one, I guess, to get to your power. But for
Yeah.
the people I work with, it is a very, I would say it's almost a calling. Like, we're like, okay, this entrepreneurship is what I've chosen because of how it grows me, right? Everything we create creates us. This book
Mhm.
is the same for me. So I think like I just think it's a inside out game.
Mhm.
And I love that part. I think it's like the most fun part to me. I think when people get frustrated or they're like at a stopping point in their business, it's usually because they're about to hit sort of like a next level of self awareness or empowerment. So the reason why I say it's an act of faith or hope is that like in those moments where you're going like, does this make sense? Am I going to keep going? You are making this like very hopeful, faithful step. I always say you have to choose this over and over again. Like, I don't think we realize
Yeah.
that. Like, you choose it the first time you go into business, and then like every 3 to 6 months, I think you choose it
Yeah.
again and again and again. And it's this act of like believing that something better is possible. I mean, I think for those of us
Mhm.
who run businesses because we believe they're about power, we're like, power could be in the hands of the creatives. Business
Yeah.
structure could look different. Like, my life could feel different. Like, that is an act of revolutionary hope,
Mhm. Yeah.
in these sorts of times. So the reason I work with creatives and entrepreneurs is because I believe we're blueprinting what's coming. As a lot of our structures crumble, I think like
Mhm.
our brains are built for building what's next, but
Mhm.
we need to be nourished to do it. We need some structures to do it. Hence why business is sort of like that container.
Mhm.
But yeah, it is a power game for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That was a great message to end on. I feel
Yeah.
very inspired.
I love it.
If you just want to give a plug for where people can find you and find your book and all this fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Sustainable Solopreneur is now available. You can buy it on Amazon, find it on my website, jennigritters.com / the book. We'll link to it. We'll send you the link. And then you can find me on social media. I'm usually on LinkedIn, Jenni Gritters, and on Instagram sometimes at Jenni Gritters. So both places are good places to follow me to keep track of all of this. And if people love this, I also have a little masterclass about how to implement these 5 principles into your business with a lot of sort of practical, tactical strategy pieces. So that lives on
Yeah.
my website too. I'll share a link with
Yeah.
you, but that one's free. So kind of a
Yeah.
good like
There's so much good
learn and then
tactics that I didn't
plug it
even get
in.
to get in there, but
I
yes,
know.
definitely recommend.
Yeah. Thank you,
All right.
Taylor.
Yes,
So
thanks so
good.
much. It's great
Yeah.
chatting with you.
Will you email me and just tell me if you need anything else, like photos for
Yeah,
me?
for sure. For sure. I'll be in touch.
Okay. Sounds good.
All
Good to
right.
see you. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.